Hello. It's funny how when I say I'm gonna not make any videos, I end up making more videos. It's the cool irony of life. Working with the duality, when you say you're not gonna do it, then you end up doing it. When you say you're gonna do it, maybe you don't end up doing it. Anyway, just notice that. Like, oh, I don't want a girlfriend, and then suddenly you get one, you know? Anyways, I'm making this video because I was talking to a friend and I kept bringing up the same point, and just to bring it home, I'm gonna just say this for everyone. It's so simple and so important, and so that's the kind of videos I like to make. All right, the secret to inner peace and spiritual realizations. All it is silence, or going inward. And there's two types of people. At least for the first round, there's two types of people. There's people that have never became silent. And when I say silent, of course, our minds at first are not going to be silent, but at least speaking as little as possible. That's what meditation retreats are. A lot of times they're in silence. People are in silence because the more you're talking, the more is in here. And so the less you talk, the more you become aware of what's in here, because there's less distraction. So there's two kinds of people. There's people that have never gone inward and been in silence. And when I say silence, talking as little as possible for a period of time, getting as little inputs as possible. So as few inputs and few outputs as possible for a long, extended period of time. That's a meditation retreat, really. But you don't have to do a meditation retreat. And I always bring this point up. Just take a weekend of sitting in your house, being super bored, not speaking unless you absolutely have to, not watching any videos, not listening to any music, not going out, not doing anything, not having any stimuli. And guess what? You start, the things inside of you that need to come up will come up. And so like I said, there's two types of people. There's people that have gone through this, whatever, it's a type of meditation retreat. It's a dopamine detox. There's people that have taken a long period of time, longer the better, you know, at least a weekend. Almost everyone can do that, as long as you don't have kids. But still, you can just not speak unless you have to. But take one day off and just don't do anything. Don't speak. Just sit there and don't take in stimuli and information. So there's people that have done that to a point where it gets to a point where they have a breakthrough. You get so bored. Boredom is just, like I've said before, boredom is just anxiety because you don't want to face yourself. So you break through that boredom barrier, and that's inner peace. And that's also what leads to spiritual realization, because you're comfortable being by yourself and you're comfortable being in silence and not being stimulated. In other words, you're comfortable not being stimulated and distracted, and you're just sitting there. And guess what? That's how you befriend yourself. That's how you become your own friend. And that's how silence becomes your friend. And another thing I did was, when I had this long period of time where I didn't do anything, and as little as possible, for almost a year, and that was without me really knowing it. That was my first meditation retreat, and I faced myself. I became comfortable with myself. I also noticed I was uncomfortable in the dark, so I sat in the dark. Once you break through these things, guess what? You have more inner peace from for the rest of your life from that point on. So there's people that have done this, and there's people that have not done this. Very few people as a whole have done this. So this is one very important thing. Sometime in your life, when you get a week off from work, don't go to Hawaii. You'll save a lot more money and you'll get a lot more out of it if you just sit there bored as hell and just don't do anything and don't speak as much as possible. Don't do anything. I mean, ideally, don't even read, but you could read, but nah, I mean, it's more powerful if you just don't do anything. Just sit there super bored, super anxious, super awkward, feeling whatever. And then guess what? The reason why people are afraid or don't want to do this, they think it's because they're bored. It's because they don't want to face themselves. So, but guess what? You can't have inner peace until you face yourself to some degree, right? And you can't have spiritual realization until you face yourself. And that's why there's a lot of, I'll just be blunt about it. There's a lot of people that think they're spiritual, but they're not nearly as spiritual as they think they are, is because of this reason. They might act spiritual, dress spiritual, but they're not fully there until they face themselves and some uncomfortable stuff arises. By the way, you don't have to know exactly what it is, but you just might feel uncomfortable physically. You might get this weird anxiety, like I got this fear at the bottom of my back. I got this feeling of fear. So you don't have to know what it was, but your body unwinds, and then and then your mind unwinds, and then you get this discomfort, sadness, so maybe you're gonna just cry for like 4 days during the whole time. Maybe you're just gonna feel uncomfortable and lonely, and so these are things that are stopping you from having inner peace. And guess what? Our brains and our bodies are so cool that they unwind themselves if you could just give them the time to do it, and just sit there and relax. And when I say relax, just don't do anything. Guess what? Your body and your brain and your psyche will automatically unwind itself, and then you'll have inner peace depending on how much you heal and go beyond. You can't heal. That's a big point here. You can't heal when you're so distracted and tight, and just adding more tightness to more stimuli, more tightness, more anxiety, more stimuli, it's just tightening you up. But you have to just don't do anything, remove inputs and outputs, and then you'll start to unwind, and then you'll heal, and then you'll have inner peace. You'll be a friend to yourself. All right, boom.